assuming that modern Orthodoxy has the ability to survive going forward, where would we, there's a lot of like gray areas, where would we draw the lines between modern Orthodoxy and open Orthodoxy and the rest?
But between open Orthodoxy and...
I'm saying that we live in like the middle between these two extremes, and it seems like more and more that we're getting, that we don't know where the lines are to draw between these two.
So, I mean, it does, it's true that nuance never sells well. That always is the case. I would want to make one correction though. I don't actually think that, I know there are contentious issues with open Orthodoxy. I have many, many serious reservations and so on. I don't think that's the real issue for us. You started the question with, well, if modern Orthodoxy survives and so on. I will say, unrelated to any ideology, the greatest threat to modern Orthodoxy is economics, which, by the way, does relate to a particular values issue. I'll take an example. I'll present this as it's challenging. American culture is exceedingly materialistic and hedonistic. That has infected most of the Orthodox Jewish world. It's not just the modern Orthodox world. In the case of the modern Orthodox world, it's killing us. Yeshiva tuition is a crushing burden. And it's not, I don't know what the Katz Yeshiva High School tuition is, but most Yeshiva tuitions are not actually unreasonable. I mean, there are a couple in New York that are, but they're more prep schools than I would say than Yeshiva. I'm not saying they're not from schools, but when you look at the typical tuition, it's not different than what the public schools spend. But the problem of both of these issues, the materialism, the kind of lifestyle people want to live, and the way we fund our yeshivas, is rooted in the same values problem, which is, how do we relate to our money? I think is the big. If I may use that sort of as an example, and that's not ideal. That's not Haredi, modern Orthodox, open Orthodox, but that's an example where our values are very much from the society around us. The Torah's view on economics is very communitarian, and if as a community we thought differently, if we weren't so involved and invested in the material, we would it wouldn't be as expensive to live a modern Orthodox lifestyle because we wouldn't need all the Pesach programs, all et cetera, and so on. And we would also have a different view of our own money, and we would fund our yeshivas differently so that it wouldn't be an oppressing burden. So I want to just push back on the beginning, but now I'll sort of answer the question, which is that in order, I think as a community, and I think it cuts, let me talk to the open Orthodox piece for a second. I think that this is actually where the rift is exposed, where we don't talk about what are the Torah's values. Let me take an example which should be not that controversial. It's a favorite story of mine. The assistant rabbi in the shul I davened in was standing there, and a young kid, a 10-year-old, comes up to him and says, "Can I ride a scooter on Shabbos?" So the rabbi starts to respond and says, "Well, technically speaking, it's not possible." Before another word, technically speaking, it's not prohibited. Before he could get another word out of his mouth, the kid started jumping up, "Yes!" Before he could finish. Now, I don't really care about the detail of this riding the scooter. What the rabbi said to him then was, depending on the age of the child, you have to decide whether it's Shabbos or not. Shabbos is one of my favorite categories because it's impossible to find. Someone says you shouldn't do it because it's Shabbos. It's not Shabbos. Except now, whether I agree with someone on the detail or not, if you do not refrain from things that are permissible but are not Shabbos, you've kind of missed the whole point of Shabbos. Shabbos is not just 39 malachos and a few other things added on and a few dinim d'Rabbanan. Shabbos is there not only you can't do A, B, and C, it's there to create a certain kind of day. A day for nourishment of the spirit, a day of physical rest as well. And the fact that we struggle with that issue so much, because, okay, if it's mutter, then I'm going to do it. And this applies everywhere in Torah, right? But our community, and I don't know the Haredi community, sort of doesn't stop and ask that question. When we deal, I'll touch the third rail, when we talk about women's issues, when we deal with contentious questions, I say the following. It's clear whether we like, if you're an Orthodox Jew, the Torah is not egalitarian. The Torah does not see men and women's roles as the same. The question you have to ask is that when there is a difference in practice, is this a function because that's the Torah's worldview, or is it just some things happen over time just because the world was like that? And I'm not here to answer when yes, when no. But I assume that any serious Torah Jew has to say yes, the Torah does distinguish between men and women's roles. If you're not prepared to accept that, it's probably the wrong community for you. Now, again, that doesn't mean that all the nonsense that goes on is correct, and every distinction needs to be made. But I think that when it comes to open orthodoxy, and to identify, again, to take that as the example, I so frequently see the attitude is, if it's not usher, then it's okay. And that kind of misses the whole point, that again, it's not just a series of trees, it's a forest. Figuring out what the forest is not always easy. I'm not telling you that Torah values, oh, it's easy, just read the book and you know what Torah values are. Extrapolating from halacha, extrapolating from Chazal's Agada, is not always an easy thing to do. And reasonable Talmidei Chacham, reasonable people, can reach different conclusions. But if you wanted to talk about where I see, I'll call it the fault line, if we are asking ourselves, when I learn Choshen Mishpat, when I learn Orach Chaim, when I learn Yoredeya, every portion of the Shulchan Aruch, am I asking myself, when I learn Yoredeya and I learn what foods I can and can't eat, it's not just about it's kosher, not kosher. You know, as the Rabbi says, once it's kosher, I can eat like a glutton. Is that okay? Is it mutter? Well, it's mutter. Is that what a serious spiritual Orthodox Jew does? No. Have you ever been to Kiddushes on Shabbos? I don't know about what they are here in Florida. I can tell you, in my shul, they're in the vicinity. It's feeding the fed, it's unbelievable, right? That's not Torah values. So I think that once you start with the premise that we start with halacha, and now we have to fill in the gaps and figure out what is the document like, that's how we will distinguish ourselves from open orthodoxy. Does that answer? I mean,
You would have to be a more of a common to be able to come to those lines.
So you're right, and so the truth is, I don't think that the way it works in this world is for halacha you ask a shayla, hashkafa you decide whatever you want. I recognize that hashkafa is much greater than halacha. Hashkafa, that we don't paskin hashkafa, but I would like to think that we are a very well-educated community. What we ask of all of you in secular studies is incredible degree of sophistication. You could, if you will intellectually engage honestly in Torah and really spend time studying Torah, not just for a test and so on, you will start to see some of the forest. Again, sometimes maybe it's a little unclear. Sometimes people could reach a different conclusion. But I see our struggle is nobody's asking the question. Nobody's asking the question of Ma Hashem Elokecha Daresh Mincha, what does God want from us? Other than it says in Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't say in Shulchan Aruch. But where you become a serious community, a serious Orthodox Jew, by the way, this could be a critique of parts of many people in the Haredi world as well. It's just there's more conformity. But as a community, for better or worse, that prides ourselves on individuality and autonomy, every one of us at least should be seriously asking that question. What does, okay, so what is in the gaps? A little more, is that a little bit? Yes.